I'm going to answer the question that I didn't answer last time, and I wasn't really thinking about it. So yeah, it's time for a model railroad Q&A. Let's get started. Hey everybody, my name's Jimmy. I'm drinking some more of that Green Mountain coffee, and this is Coffee and Trains. This video is brought to you by Walthers and their all-new Titans of Steel trading cards, with 5 captivating categories that bring the world of railroading to life, from legendary locomotives and essential passenger and freight cars to game-changing railway trailblazers and iconic landmarks. Each card category offers a unique glimpse into the machines, people, and milestones that define the golden age of rails and beyond. Ask your local hobby shop or check them out at the link in the description. If you want to tell me what kind of coffee you are drinking and be featured just like these guys right here, you can do that in the comments below, and who knows, you might see your name pop up on an episode of Coffee and Trains. Also, this is the monthly Q&A, and if you want to get your questions in for next month, I'll tell you how to do that at the end of this video, because next month is my annual Ask Me Anything or AMA. Cheers, guys. Oh, and if you're looking for the question that was in the title and thumbnail and nothing else, it's at this time code right here. Vintage Renewed asked the question, says that they are getting ready to build a small portable display layout for N-scale. Said they're used to bigger scales. Is there any tips on track radius or other stuff to keep in mind when dealing with N-scale? Well, N-scale is about 54% the size, actually it is 54% the size of HO scale. So you're looking at roughly a little bit over half the size. So when you're looking at track radii specifically, the tightest radii typically that you run in HO scale are going to be 22 inches and 18 inches, sometimes 15 inches. And those equivalents really are like 11 and 12 inch radii. If you're doing Kato Unitrack, that's the 282 millimeter and the 315 millimeter. I try not to go below those. There's also the 9 3/4 that's around there. That's the 249 millimeter in Kato Unitrack. But these are also measurements that are widely available in Atlas and other companies as well. So that's typically where I like to stay. 11 inches is typically the minimum for things, a lot of things like big boys and things like that. But you also said in your comment you're looking at 3 RDCs lashed together to run. And I think you're going to be okay with that 11-inch radii. That's the big thing to consider. Otherwise, with N-scale, it really depends on the age of something. If you have something that's a little bit older that has a little bit bigger wheel flanges, you may want to look at code 80 track instead of code 55. But if it's newer, it shouldn't have a problem running on code 55. But those are 2 of the main things. If there's any other questions or anything else that you guys can think of, leave it in the comments below. Lars Buscher asked about N-scale and DCC and sound. He says he sees that N-scale Atlas locomotives with DCC and sound are significantly less expensive than a Kato with DCC and sound installed. And are there any concerns with buying those? No, there's not, and I'll explain why. So basically, if we look at Kato and Atlas, Kato is made in Japan, Atlas is made in China. Now, Kato is Japanese, obviously, and DC is more popular than DCC in Japan. So when they are shipped over to Kato USA for distribution, they come DCC ready. So they're standard DC, and all of the DCC installation happens here in the US after everything is all manufactured. So what you're doing with Kato is you are looking at paying someone. They do pay someone, because you can see the jobs occasionally posted. They pay someone that just does DCC installation and DCC and sound installation. Now, some of their newer locomotives do have cavities for speakers, but a lot of times this involves cutting into the chassis, and it is a little bit of harder work. Now, Atlas, made in China. The decoders they use are made in China, so a lot of times they can just be installed right there in China before they're boxed up and sent out. Another thing is that a lot of times the boards already have everything on them. When I bought my SD9s, they already had a speaker on them, and they took the new ESU E24 mount, and all I had to do was pop the E24 decoder on there, and I was ready to go with sound. So Atlas, everything's kind of made all at once, versus Kato, everything comes DC and they have to do all the installations here. That's the difference in price. Side note also, Katos are pretty easy to put a DCC decoder in. They're drop-in install, but that's also why you see a lot of my Kato engines without sound, because I'm a little nervous about cutting into chassis. Jimothy Trains says they're making a new switching layout after 2 years. Should I primarily model NSX or NSX? That's the wrong ones. It's UP and NSX. Should have primarily model NS or CSX. So the cool thing about Norfolk Southern and CSX is they occupy the same area of the country. So you can get away with having actually both on a railroad and looking completely normal and natural. So if you're looking to model, I would look at what industry you're doing and see what it serves more. So for instance, I live in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, and we have both Norfolk Southern and CSX, and they serve different areas in different parts of the city. So you have different industries that they serve and that kind of stuff. So I would look at what area of the country you want to put your switching layout in and what industry you want to model, and then see which one serves the industries around that, and that's how I would pick. But if you're looking to model NSX and CSX, they will both fit in the same area, so you could just do both. Or you could just do Union Pacific because everything is going to end up being Union Pacific. DCC Sodor 2 asked if I ever looked at Bachman's Thomas and Friend range. They said they have put in DCC in all of them, and they are fantastic little models. You know, you're not the first person to tell me that the Thomas line are fantastic little models, and it's one thing that I have really considered. I grew up with Thomas. I loved watching Thomas, and it was kind of like a rekindling of that when my son got really into Thomas. He got into the old Thomas, which was the old school G-scale stuff. So it's like watching a show with model trains the whole time. So yeah, I would definitely consider it. I think it's something really cool. I think if I was doing DCC installs, I'd probably start with like Henry or Gordon. But yeah, I would definitely love to do that. Also, I love the fact that you can get the narrow gauge ones in HON 30, because who doesn't love the narrow gauge engines, and who doesn't get a smile on their face when the narrow gauge theme plays, because that's just one of the most pleasant songs ever. Agent Spock says, can I do layout tours? You know, I wish I could do layout tours. This is not my full-time job. I would love to do layout tours and have the time to do layout tours. I've talked to people about coming and seeing their layouts, and I just don't have the time. But if I ever get the time, I'm going to try and do layout tours. I may try something coming up. I'm not sure, but yeah, I definitely, if the channel lasts long enough to where I can do this while I'm retiring, if this is still around, then I will probably add layout tours to this. But I really wish I could. The best thing I can do right now is the virtual model railroad show, but it's a time factor, not a desire factor. Scented Pinecone says they just started in scale and they bought a lot of garage sale rolling stock, but they have the Rapido couplers. Now, for those that don't know, that's not Rapido Trains, the company. That's the kind of like the squarish hooks that are on the older in scale stuff. And they asked, what's a cost-effective way to switch to knuckle couplers? So, really, it's never going to be truly crazy cost-effective. The most cost-effective way would be to buy the Micro Trains like unassembled coupler kits, and they actually have a little device that you can use to assemble the couplers. I have one somewhere. I don't know where it is, but that's actually one thing I kind of gave up on with N-Scale was I just buy the ones that are pre-assembled. I always do body mount now, and I just drill a little hole and put the screw through it, but probably just buying Micro Trains couplers is going to be the way to go. You can also buy the trucks complete with couplers and everything, but yeah, that's not going to be the cheapest thing in the world. So I would also just look at seeing like another way you can do it is if you don't want to transfer them all to Rapido couplers, but you want to have something that can like adapt. I have an adapter car that I made that has one side a Rapido coupler, one side a knuckle coupler, and that way I can merge my trains together. Jeremy Gothier 1295 asked, where did I get the storage tanks on my layout? He said he hadn't found too many on the market. I think you're talking about, is it these? Or maybe that one? Or, oh, I'm about to knock stuff over here. Maybe that one. So those are actually ones that I designed and 3D printed myself. And I did that because I had trouble finding them on the market as well. So sorry I didn't have a better answer for you with that, but that's ones that I have 3D printed. I might put them up on the free section, free 3D models on my website. So I'll link my website in the description below so you guys can see that. John Moraski 129 says they're primarily an aviation modeler, but they're considering starting a model railroad to both change it up and a project to do with an 11-year-old daughter who loves building dioramas. And their biggest challenge is finding a place to start and place to put it. So what would I recommend? Well, what I would recommend is literally what I have right here. This is an entirely modular setup, and these are Trak modules, and they use Kato Trak. They come in kits. I'll link some down in the description below, but a modular setup is probably the way to go. And there are more modular standards in N scale than HO scale. So if you're looking for the most available product overall, it's going to be HO scale. But if you're looking for space savers and modular setups, you're going to look at N scale. And if she really likes dioramas, Trak is a really great way to do that. Another one that I would consider that I'm just starting to get into is Trak, and I'll link to where you can buy some of those in the description below. But those are probably the best way you're going to look at it, because if you build like Trak or Trak, especially Trak are real easy to store away because they're pretty small. They are going to limit you on what locomotives you can run because the radius on the turns are really tight, but Trak and Trak are probably going to be the ones to look at. And if you really don't want to do much of a space investment, also look at Kato's mini diorama kits, and I'll link some of those in the description below. But that's a great way to start because you can really kind of see if you're interested in it before you really get a heavy investment on. Lost Souls Railroad says, how often do I get mail for your train on YouTube? Well, I don't publish my mailing address, so the only time I get is when I buy something. So when I spend money, that's when I get something on YouTube. So yeah, that's kind of inconsistent. And the other question you ask is, how do you take your coffee? Well, I take it two ways. One, you guys will probably know if you've been watching long enough, black with 2 sugars. But also a lot of times I'll just pour a bunch of creamer in there if I want it to not taste like coffee. Avery Campbell 2836 asked about modeling a prototype and how I would go about doing it. And they have a short line that they want to model, and they're trying to figure out how to do it. So basically, if you have a short line that you did in the past, the first thing I would do is start to look for documentation of it, whether it's old photography or anything like that. Try to figure out where the railroad ran, what kind of industries it served, and things like that. Then you just need to figure out what level of detail and accuracy you need to go to. If you want to go kind of just the spirit of it, then you can just figure out kind of what they did and buy some kits and things like that. But if you really want to go into the deep end, which a lot of people enjoy, and get really into everything, you're going to want to do some research. Consider your local library, historical societies, anything out there. If you're a big enough place that has a historical museum, any photography, archives. Another great place if there's a university around, sometimes the libraries will have big archives of the region, so that's another place you can look. So those are the things that I would definitely check out. You also ask about finding things and replicating them that are not easily visible from the road or public land. The easiest way to do that, and there's no really other easy way, is really just to get a drone, whether or not, because you don't really want to trespass and go hiking. If you get the drone up and you're just looking around at old things or things that you want to see, as long as you're not violating local ordinances or FAA regulations, you can just get plenty of pictures. There are tons of rail fanners that do that. There are tons of model railroaders that do that in order to get all of their information for doing prototypes. Drones have become a really valuable tool for prototype modelers. NWR Astro Train, I really enjoy your TikTok, by the way. He asked, what would you say are the most reliable magnetically operated couplers for N-scale? I think overall, including magnetically, it's got to be micro trains. They have the magnetic uncouplers on there, the little hooks, and those are probably going to be your best ones overall. Katos aren't bad too, but a lot of people don't put the little hooks in them to do the magnetic stuff. But N-scale is going to be micro trains. Micro trains is pretty much the most reliable. I'll also say that Accumate, which is very similar to micro trains, is pretty reliable too. Lee Manning X5Y says that I didn't answer the question from his question from last week, which was, what is your favorite part about the hobby? So I've actually thought about that since there, and I think my favorite thing, and this is 100% real, is building. I get kind of antsy when I've had something sitting around here. I haven't even completely finished this layout, and I'm already thinking of building new things. It's why I've built my HO scale layout. It's why I'm building a Z scale layout. Lord knows I'm looking at a T gauge layout. I want to try nanoscale. Yes, that's a thing. I wanted to I like building. It's very therapeutic for me. So I like building scenes and dioramas, and I like building like things and like making the scenes look nice and that kind of stuff. So the building process is a creative outlet for me, and it relaxes me. So doing the scenery and getting all the track work and building the modules, that's probably my favorite part of the hobby. So getting something and taking and creating something from nothing, whether it's a module, like the build process is my favorite part. Okay, next month is my AMA, my Ask Me Anything. You can do that in the comments below. You can literally ask me anything and I will answer it within reason, and I do ask that you try to get those questions in within the first week of the posting of this video, because then I can really start to like build the video after that, and I start to collect them to build the video. So try to get those questions in as fast as you can. I will try to answer everything within reason. Not going to answer any personal questions, but yeah, so next month it's going to be fun. It was really fun last year. So thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, drink some coffee, and happy railroading.